Everyone noticed that so-called teaser from Gooseworx, and at first, I didn't think much of it. But after yesterday's news that Glitch is going to reveal some big info about the new episode of the amazing digital circus this Friday, I started to think those Goose posts weren't just random jokes or anything like that. If that Pomni image was just a little reminder that the show still exists, then Jax dressed as a witch is actually more than just a fun Halloween-themed drawing. I'll say right away, we're not getting a Halloween episode, but the theory that we might see Jax in a similar form in one of the upcoming episodes actually makes a lot more sense. We've already seen Goose post something that looked like a simple joke before, and then that joke ended up happening for real in episode 5. What also threw me off was the fact that Goose posted that image at the very beginning of October, even though Halloween's still pretty far away. Normally, it'd make way more sense to share something like that right before the holiday. But if you connect all the news we've got so far, this image isn't teasing Jax's future look or some new adventure. It's hinting at the release date. That theory makes even more sense when you remember that Halloween this year actually falls on a Friday, and as we all know, every episode of the amazing digital circus has dropped on a Friday. So it really feels like the wait's almost over, and since Jax is the focus of this teaser, and he became the most talked about character after episode 6, let's try to predict what might happen to him in the upcoming episode. Before this episode, we saw Jax as just a fun-loving troublemaker with really specific jokes, and honestly, that's true. The thing is, we only looked at him from that side and didn't pay attention to the other signs that could have helped us understand this character way earlier than now. I did a deep dive investigation and can confidently say that today you're going to find out the truth about Jax in episode 7. The first sign that Jax is actually a deeper character with a really complex fate was the dialogue scene between Pomni and Jax in episode 5.
Doesn't she get on your nerves sometimes?
I mean, she's nice to everyone.
I don't know. I think she tries way too hard. Like, we're stuck in... Why are you always pretending everything's always fine? Like, if you tell someone they're loved and appreciated every day, it just kind of loses all meaning. It just feels like she's trying to take advantage of you, you know?
And if we pay attention, Jax really badly wants to get things off his chest, and basically, he does. But if you look closer, you can see him turn away and purposely avoid looking at Pomni to immediately set some boundaries. That was the first scene ever where Jax genuinely talked to someone, and even if back then this scene didn't have much meaning for the story, now I want you to lock it in your head, because we're definitely going to come back to it. Besides that, in episode 6, we got the fullest look at Jax's thinking while living in the digital circus.
One day you're somebody in the real world doing important things, and then the next you're just a weird little cartoon jester. You want to hold on to that part of you that still thinks it's part of that world, but in the end, what does it get you? Ragatha tries to be all nice and friendly, but she gets torn up every other adventure. As time goes on, we just end up falling into our archetypes, become part of the machine.
What's your archetype then? The villain?
Listen, I add a key dynamic. I see how far I can push things, I screw with people, and I break the fourth wall. You wanna know why? It's 'cause it's funny. I do everything 'cause it's funny. 'Cause I'm the funny one.
At this point, we realize that Jax has both a very simple and a very complicated view of the digital circus. He fully understands his role in this place and doesn't want to make things harder, and that's exactly where the problems begin. If we remember the scene where Jax snaps at Pomni, he literally trashes her feelings, shows the highest level of indifference, and acts as aggressive as possible. And at first, it might seem like that's all Jax is. But we clearly remember how he reacted to the doors of his dead friends, how he most likely talked sincerely with Pomni, or that moment where he worries about Gangle even though she seems to be, let's say, his main target. You could expect anything but definitely not some sympathy. These two sides of Jax completely contradict each other, and in that case, one of them is fake. I'm sure that the Jax who always hides behind the mask of a cool guy doesn't really belong to our rabbit, but is just a defense mechanism, because now we realize that Jax actually has huge problems and his life is literally at risk. I'm 100% sure that all those words and actions were done on purpose, just to push away everyone else stuck in the digital circus. With Zooble, he's had a pretty interesting dynamic for a while. With Gangle, I already talked about. Kinger acts like a crazy old man 99% of the time, so there's not much effort needed there. Ragatha he doesn't take seriously at all, and only with Pomni things were going perfectly fine up until that moment.
Oh, we make such a good team!
Well, to be fair, our competition wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, true. I suppose this is the part where one of us betrays the other. We could just be winners as a team.
We're not a team, come on.
What do you mean? Yes, we are.
Delusional.
Weren't we kind of bonding over being chaotic evil together?
I was merely entertaining you because I thought it was funny.
It's pretty clear that all this so-called drama started right when Pomni began getting closer, and looking back at that scene, we now clearly see that Jax is actually a good guy you can have fun with or talk to, but nothing more. And it's not because it would get boring or he'd turn out dull, it's simply because Jax won't let it happen. And that's where his biggest problem comes in. Most likely he gets really attached to the characters close to him, and after they turn into an abstracted monster, his world keeps falling apart piece by piece. That's exactly why he can't handle any mentions of his friends and exactly why he reacted the way he did at Kaufmo's funeral, or when Ribbit was brought up in episode 5. And now that we understand Jax's main problem and his personality, we can go back to the scene from the start of the video where Jax had a panic attack. That was the first time we noticed such unusual behavior from the rabbit, but I'm sure there were a few more incidents like that which just never made it on screen. If we think about it a bit and piece together the chain of events, it becomes obvious that this episode happened right after his failed talk with Pomni, which clearly left him upset. In that case, we realize that when Jax is sad, he's super vulnerable, and that's exactly why he keeps hiding behind that so-called cool guy mask. Only when he's in that so-called fun mood can Jax forget about the problems closing in on him from every side, and the biggest problem is his weakness. Knowing all this, a fair question comes up. Could Jax really get abstracted in episode 7? Yeah, he could, but that's not the only possible outcome. First, let's remember the leak where Goose straight up said that starting from episode 6, chaos would begin in the digital circus, and in that case, what can we call chaos at this point? If we count the start of these events with Jax as chaos, then his transformation into an abstracted monster seems more and more logical. But I think it's way more complicated than that, and Goose clearly meant something else by those words. We're gonna see some major changes in the digital circus, and it's hard to believe Jax won't be part of it. One thing's for sure, Jax needs support from someone else, and most likely we'll see some kind of attempt at that, and that therapist definitely ain't gonna be Kane. I think Pomni and Regatha will talk this problem over and decide that the only one who can really help Jax in this situation is Kinger, who actually knows how to handle stuff like this.
It was my fault we went down this path, wasn't it? I'm really sorry for that.
Why have you been acting so different lately?
I have, haven't I? I'm normally not too good with memories.
However, it's pretty unlikely our rabbit will let anyone get close to him, and way more likely we'll see him slowly losing that very spark that made him the favorite character for digital circus fans in the first place. As always, I'm waiting for your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you soon in the next videos.